Welcome. I'm delighted to have this opportunity to share a new resource on Chinese Christianity with you. I'm Daryl Ireland, and today I'm going to introduce you to the Chinese Christian Poster Project, which is sponsored by the Center for Global Christianity and Mission at Boston University. This project began when a woman approached me with a rather unusual request. Could I help her with some Chinese posters she found in her grandmother's attic? As she described them to me, I had the faint recollection of seeing something like them before, maybe from a Chinese missionary magazine, or maybe in archival photos, like you see here. But when I actually saw a poster, I was amazed what it was like in real life. I hadn't imagined how large they were or how bright and vibrant. Instantly, I was enchanted. And after that initial batch of posters found in the attic was donated to Boston University, I spent the next 8 years trying to track down more. Today, I've located more than 800 different posters, and most of them have been digitized and are freely available online at ccposters.com. Posters were the most common Christian visual imagery in China in the first half of the 20th century. It might be an overstatement to say that they were everywhere, but they did appear by the millions, and they were hung up in tea rooms and on city walls and temple gates. Posters were put up in houses, hung on doors, and in churches. They were unfolded for street evangelism. They appeared not only in the urban treaty ports on China's east coast, but were also popular for village evangelism in remote Western provinces like Yunnan and Tibet. Posters so dominated the Christian visual landscape that when a Christian artwork appeared that was not in poster form, it was likely to have been inspired by one. You see, Christian posters were innovations in mass-produced art. They appeared just about everywhere. They were aesthetically pleasing, symbolically rich, and yet easily understood. Between 1925 and 1950, posters were the public face of Chinese Christianity. Since they've recently been recovered, we have a new opportunity to understand how the gospel was presented to the average man or woman on the street. We don't have to confine ourselves to the handful of famous Chinese theologians and the books that they wrote to see how the gospel was being contextualized. After all, those books only reached the hands of a few thousand readers. These posters, on the other hand, were seen by tens, if not hundreds of millions of people in the second quarter of the 20th century. If we want to understand what Chinese Christianity was lived like and how it was expressed on the ground, then we should look at the posters. They were created by Chinese artists for Chinese viewers. So, if they had to woo their audiences, what did Christian artists foreground in their posters? What did they think would win people over to their faith? How did they make Christianity compelling to their compatriots? To answer those questions, I invite you to explore the website, ccposters.com, which Dr. Alex Mayfield will briefly introduce to you in a moment. I also invite you to continue following this video so you can hear Ms. Wu describe how one poster packaged a parable from Jesus in ways that made it particularly meaningful to Chinese audiences.
Thank you, Daryl, and members of the consultation. I am Alex Mayfield, professor of history at Asbury University and the digital architect of the Chinese Christian Posters website, ccposters.com. Before Ms. Wu shares her case study, I would like to introduce this rich resource to students, teachers, and church leaders. The main objective of this website is to make this wonderful collection of posters available to the public through an easy-to-use interface. So, when you arrive at ccposters.com, you will see a menu with just a few options: posters, collections, exhibits, resources, contact, and a language dropdown. As you will see, the entire website is available in English, simplified Chinese, and traditional Chinese. For now, let's click on posters. This allows you to browse the posters through several categories, filters, and keyword searches. By hovering over the poster, you can view a preview of the poster. And underneath each poster, there are keywords that, when clicked, take you to related posters. If you click on a poster, you'll be taken to a page that includes additional information. You can see a larger image of the poster, an English translation, and a simplified transcription. On the right-hand side, you can also find important metadata about the poster, like who published it and what year it was printed. Returning to the top menu, let's click Collections. Here you will find links to view the posters in a more curated way. Links on this page will allow you to see special and general collections that arrange posters by subject matter, publisher, and by the contributing library. Next, if you go to Resources, we can find a library of English and Chinese materials which provide helpful background information on the posters. These are arranged by category, time period, and specific topics. These are wonderful resources for students and researchers on Chinese Christian visual culture. Last, if we click on Exhibits in the top menu, we will be taken to a gallery of user-created exhibits. By registering, users can create customized, interactive exhibits using any of the images in our collection. Several professors have already successfully used the site to create and run class projects on Chinese Christian posters. We believe that this project can be a rich source for theological and historical education in Asia. To help show why that is, I would like to pass the presentation to Ms. Wu.
Hi, I'm Miss Wu, a Langhang scholar and a PhD candidate at Asia Graduate School of Theology in the Philippines. The title of my presentation is Reading the Parable of the Rich Fool in the Context of Chinese Culture Through the Lens of a Chinese Christian Poster. It's my pleasure to provide an illustrative case study of one poster that shows how these posters can help us understand and teach biblical passages within the Chinese context. For this presentation, I will look at a poster of the parable of the rich fool in Luke 12:15-22. Originally published by the Religious Chart Society of Hankou and Shanghai, the poster is titled, Watch Out and Keep Yourselves from All Greed, and it tells the story of the rich fool through a sequence of 3 pictures. Western depictions of this parable typically show only one character, the rich fool. In contrast, the Chinese poster tells the story in a way that places the rich fool in his familiar and communal setting. After analyzing the poster frame by frame, I will return to this observation and reflect on how it may help to communicate the message of the parable within a Chinese context, both for those outside the church and for those within the church. The first panel shows how the rich man saves his wealth. The rich man is easily distinguishable. He wears gold clothes decorated with traditional embroidery that expresses the pattern of wealth. And he wears what looks like a special crown, a hat clearly different from those of ordinary workers, accompanied by a servant who helps to carry his cane. Although the rich man clearly looks old, the smile on his face displays him as full of life. His eyes and hands are all directed toward the larger barns he is building, and the grain in lane is almost overflowing. Two elements stand out. First, the barn doors are marked from the bottom up with numbers from 1 to 10 to help him count the grain in his barns. Although the barn is almost full of grain, the workers are still bringing the grain into the barn. Therefore, workers are also busy building a bigger barn in the foreground. It invokes the calculating Chinese saying to store up food in anticipation of famine, to prepare for the rainy day, 积谷防饥，未雨绸缪, which means being prepared for something before it happens. Second, the rich man is significantly taller than all the others. While it is difficult to say whether this is through the use of perspective or unnatural proportion, it's clear that the rich man is meant to appear larger and taller than the rest of the scene. This may carry extra meaning in the historical Chinese context, where height is often linked to the adequate diet and nutrition provided by wealth. If understood morally, the rich man's taller height expresses his position as superior to others, 高人一等. The first frame, lamb, gives an interesting picture. The rich man, rather than being a greedy Scrooge, is someone who knows how to prepare, who is wealthy, healthy, and the envy of others. The second frame moves to the tragic scene of Luke 12:20, when the rich man's soul is required from him that very night, and he does not know who will receive what he has prepared. The scene is emotional. The moon and stars indicate a nighttime death. The old man's face no longer wears a smile but a frown. His children cry over him, and a child servant boils medicine for him in the corner. Interestingly, the final frame then moves on to include a funeral procession, something that is not in Luke 12, but it is a similar story from Luke 16. This frame includes some interesting additions. The rich man's coffin is marked as being from a wealthy person, marked with engravings and inscriptions. At least 4 people carry his coffin, others carry flags and a band plays. In short, he won the mourning honor and the generous burial, valued by most Chinese people. Ironically, however, it also highlights the key point of the parable. No matter how much wealth the rich man accumulates for himself, he must eventually face death. With this stark conclusion reached, the audience is directly addressed by some small words at the bottom of the poster which read, "Please go to a church to hear the gospel and study the Bible." Considering the final admonition and the political upheaval of its context, it seems clear that the poster was used to share the gospel and introduce Jesus to people who face a time of turmoil and crisis. To that end, It was likely a significant and effective way to talk about salvation with Chinese people. For non-Christian Chinese people, the poster presents a stark contrast. The man, by all marks, has lived a successful life and even received a generous burial. Yet the stark juxtaposition of the death and funeral frames leaves an open space for readers to reflect. Where will the rich man go after death? For Chinese Christians, this poster might better be read as a lesson concerning the proper use of wealth. The poster highlights the familiar setting, and that is the setting that frames many Chinese people's conception of accumulating wealth and possessions. In that context, the ritual acts completely in line with traditional Chinese values. Yes, he stores wealth for himself, but also for the family's prosperity and the continuation of future generations. Even still, the rich man is depicted as misguided in light of his imminent death. This calls into question traditional values around wealth accumulation and family responsibilities, and suggests there is another approach. Perhaps the poster suggests that Chinese Christians might need to broaden the concept of the family so that it includes the family of God. Then they may be more willing to point their savings and accumulated wealth towards the betterment of God's bigger family. If today's Chinese Christians could use their wealth in this way, then I believe it would make a tremendous contribution to the ministry of the kingdom of God. In conclusion, as a hermeneutical tool, the poster functions not only as a beautiful piece of art, but also as a guide for the viewer to arrive at a proper theological understanding of the parable within the context of Chinese culture. More than just an artistic nicety, this poster's attention to traditional Chinese culture provides practical, exegetical insights. While Western commentators focus on the individual, this poster reveals the communal dimensions of saving money for one's family in the Chinese context. Yet, this poster might also help viewers to reframe wealth accumulation by placing the practice into the broader context of God's family and the mission of the church. This insight can aid pastors and church leaders as they teach Chinese Christians to use their economic ability to create wealth to contribute to the spread of the gospel. This encouragement is particularly relevant for the present Chinese church context in Asia. Thank you.
Thank you for this opportunity of introducing you to a new resource for studying Christianity in China, ccposters.com. If you would like to learn more about the posters, a new book has just been released, Visions of Salvation, Chinese Christian Posters in an Age of Revolution. There you will find various historians, missiologists, theologians, art historians, and experts in visual culture, reflecting on the significance of these posters. But even after all that, I know this: there is still so much more to see, so much more to discover in these posters. I hope you will take a look and find a fresh view of Chinese Christianity. Thank you.